I'm Melissa.
And I'm Jesse. And
this is the Reimagine Success Podcast.
We're a husband and wife team who want to make a difference.
Keeping up with the Joneses can be exhausting, and we can often lose sight of what we are accomplishing.
We're here to reimagine success and to celebrate the steps it takes us to get there.
Big or small, we want to showcase success stories that will inspire, motivate, and help propel you towards greatness in your own life.
So come reimagine success with us, and let's go on this journey together.
This week's episode brought to you by Deadly Crimson, a published comic book series picked up by Creative Global Entertainment. It's a compelling and thrilling action story with comedic elements similar to The Avengers and Guardians of the Galaxy. The story will keep you gripping the edge of your seat while retaining an emotional center. Deadly Crimson is an action-adventure story about a scientist-turned-assassin who must rescue her kidnapped daughter despite the most criminal masterminds against her. Find out more at www.deadlycrimson.com, Instagram and Facebook at Deadly Crimson, and email is crimsonisdeadly@gmail.com. Welcome back to another Thursday edition of Reimagine Success.
Hey, I hope everybody's had an extremely successful week and that it's just been an amazing start to the next month of February that we are in now.
Oh my gosh, I cannot believe that it's February already, Jesse.
I know, this year's flying by, and it's like the busier you are, the faster things seem to go, and geez, we've been so busy lately.
But you know, there's one thing that you can always do. Stop, take a breath, take a moment, and let that be your present. And don't forget to stay in the present and stay in the moment.
Absolutely. Sometimes you just have to slow down, center yourself for a minute, and appreciate the time that you're in, or else it'll just pass you by way too quickly.
Exactly. And with that, we are going to jump right into our guest this week.
Yes, we've got Alex Winfield, and Alex is a 44-year-old man who studied guitar at the Atlanta Institute of Music in 2001 and 2002, and spent his early adulthood as a professional musician before returning to school to study biology at the University of North Georgia. Currently, he works as an IT support technician for an electrical contractor, and he's a lifelong practitioner of martial arts. But what we're really here to talk about today is something that is not spoken about enough, and we're going to dive more deeply into this in a moment. But Alex was also just recently diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome at 44 years of age, and so we're going to dive into what success through a diagnosis kind of looks like in today's world. So Alex, welcome to the podcast.
Welcome. It's so great to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Melissa, Jesse. Thank you so much.
No problem. We're excited about today. So why don't you give a little bit of more detail to your story than what your bio talks about, because there's so much to unpack here, and we'll just kind of kick off wherever you feel comfortable.
Sure. So I think the primary purpose in kind of wanting to come on is to sort of, maybe all I can really do is share my own experiences, my own. I have no expertise. I'm not qualified to speak to any kind of mental health in any kind of mental health capacity. But what I can talk about is my own experience and things that have worked for me in the journey that I've kind of gone through. To one kind of technical note, that according to the Diagnostic Statistics Manual, there's really no way to diagnose an adult on the autism spectrum, or at least with Asperger's. Is technically something that can only be diagnosed. Thank you. And that's going to happen a lot. Diagnosed in children. And so this was something that I had been referred to by my partner. My girlfriend had made a suggestion. Some other people had made suggestions in the past, and I never thought that much of it. But I have been dealing with some issues related to anxiety rather extensively over the course of my life. And that, coupled with other sort of developmental issues that I had been diagnosed with as a young child and suffered with during school, the avenues of therapy that I was pursuing were definitely providing some benefit, but I wasn't maybe getting the full benefit. So I sort of sought out a new therapist and somebody who specialized in dealing with folks all over the learning with various learning disabilities, various learning states,
Mm.
um, who included working amongst her achievements was working with and publishing work on Asperger's and on the autism spectrum. And I sought her out. I went out for for to start therapy. And as I mentioned before, it's technically not something that an adult can be diagnosed with. But in her opinion, she's like, you've ticked every box on the list. And so the thing was to say like, okay, well, let's just see if we can apply therapeutic approach based on this assessment and say
Mm.
like, it's assuming it's you are on the spectrum, let's just go ahead and start to apply some things and see if those things work. And there is a universal component for all of us, and that we're if all of us are trying on some level to make things better for ourselves, improve our disposition for our own health and for the people around us. And so I think that there's some universal applications there that, irrespective of any condition that you may have or predicament that you may find yourself in, you can apply those things and you can share these things. And so again, that was my primary purpose. I did have an evaluation as a very young person for attention deficit disorder. And in rereading that, based on that experience or based on that appointment that I had, there's a lot of stuff in there about like coordination, about misunderstanding verbal cues and things that are also, characteristic of folks that are diagnosed with Asperger's or on the autism spectrum.
So they
So
just
there is
missed
some,
that when you were young, uh,
yeah,
which is a shame because if
Mm-hmm.
maybe if they would have caught that then, your story might have been written very differently.
yeah, it might have been written a little bit differently. One of the good things though is I was fortunate and blessed to be in a position where I had my parents were of the were of the mindset that they were concerned, that they were able to take me to a specialist who was willing to go through all this and prescribe. It was Ritalin at the time. I was about 8 years old. This was around '86, and Ritalin was the go-to.
Mm.
And so again, it was better than nothing, and there were great leaps and strides. And going back and reading through that assessment, actually seeing all the different recommendations, how all my teachers were involved, and all of this, and I had no idea at the
Mm.
time.
Hmm.
But I was fortunate that I was in a capacity where I was able to receive that kind of attention and that kind of care.
Yeah.
And so, I went through life. I had school issues. By the time I was in high school, I had to go to summer school just about every summer. I think I made every single summer, with the exception of after my senior year, and had trouble trying to get into how to getting into and staying in college after that.
Mm.
I I wandered around and did the music thing for a while. One of the things that I could do pretty well was listen to and interpret and then regurgitate music, singing and through guitar and through piano and bass.
Mhm.
I'm lucky to have that. I'm also, again, lucky, I'm thankful for my parents that were putting me in a position where I could learn, where they were paying for lessons, they were paying for instruments and helping me pursue projects. And if I wanted to do recording as a younger person, and at the age where you don't really have any money, so like, listen, if I could have this much and I'll provide this much, would you let me record? So they were supportive in that. And again, that's something that I just was lucky to have, to be in an environment where they fostered that.
Yeah, that's awesome because
Yeah.
a lot of people don't have that support, and
Oh, yeah.
they're just like to. So that's a great contrast. Like, so Melissa didn't necessarily have supportive family uh, for her creative stuff, and it pushed her harder to make it. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, for sure.
Hmm.
Anytime you don't have support, if you have that creative mindset, you want to get it yourself. And if you do have support of your parents or your family, I feel like that, that'll push you forward as well. So it just really depends on your mindset overall.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, what I think is that the artistic people who don't have support at home are seeking that support from somewhere, and they have to
Right.
work harder to get that support. Where the ones who are lucky enough to have that come from home, it's such a blessing to have the parents backing that and to drive your dream and help you succeed in it, because it feels really good to know that your parents are proud and that you're doing
Yeah.
something they respect and want to help with.
Yeah, it was really good for me, particularly because while I was floundering in many other aspects of school, I had music that I was excelling in, and I could feel good about myself. I had, I had something that I was doing. I had feedback. I was developing,
Hmm.
and again, it was just lucky. So it's just one of those things that you people that have trouble in school, to the extent that I'm qualified to say anything about anything, the more diverse that you have, the more diverse choices that somebody has, even if it's athleticism, if it's music, drama, whatever it is. A lot of those extracurricular activities can be really, really important, and especially if you've got somebody floundering on an academic side, in my opinion.
Hmm.
Um, but I had a lot of issues when I finally sort of locked in to Atlanta Institute of Music. I was able to accelerate in that school to a different degree. There was a lot of performance. There was a lot of routine, but one of the things that I do well is I can lock into a task. If it's repetitive, if there's a physical component, which is Jesse, from this, I'm sure maybe Melissa does as well, practicing an instrument, practicing scales
Hmm.
repetitively and having to change chords is a physical component as well as a musical component. And
Yeah.
being able to kind of lock into that was something that I could do very well. And that was both meditative as well as providing me the motor coordination that I needed to advance. And I did well. I wandered around the Southeast, the Midwest with a band for about 9 years, a group called Five Star Iris. Very good friends of mine, who I'm very grateful for those experiences. They actually got me overseas to an extent, and got some radio play in various towns. And
Nice.
we did enjoy some moderate success there, and it's a wonderful times. One of the things that unfortunately I got sort of roped into that I didn't see at first was just the you go out and you play a show, and everybody wants to buy you a beer.
Hmm.
So everybody buys you a beer, and then you have your beer, and the next guy wants to buy you a beer, next guy wants to buy you a shot, next guy wants to buy you a beer. So you go out and people buy you a beer and you drink them, and then you keep drinking them and you keep drinking them. And what helped me, as somebody who was somewhat socially unrefined or socially anxious,
Mm.
someone who I had my social skills, I guess, what I thought was normal, but I don't really know what that is. But being in a situation where I was having to kind of be social and direct and talk to people, alcohol helped that tremendously because it certainly lowered the barriers, lowered my inhibitions and whatnot.
Mm.
But the problem was when you had a problem being social, and then you add alcohol, you had one problem and now you have two.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
And so I got to the point where I just was having a very slow trickle of beer going into my system constantly, and that escalated and escalated and escalated. And for a good many years, I just was very much an alcoholic, and I was drinking in the morning. I was
Mm.
putting away a six pack before 8 a.m. on some days. And I would drink until I would fall asleep, and then wake up and drink again and fall asleep on some days. Like it was pretty brutal. And
Mm.
the thing is, like, I was actually trying to go back to school at this point, and was the problem was I was actually doing pretty good as an older person. I got somewhat more disciplined, but the alcohol was certainly inhibiting me, and I ended up getting into some legal issues, as you do when you drink too much. And ultimately I had to come to a point where it's like I had to stop. I had to give this up, or I was going to die or hurt somebody else or kill somebody else.
Yeah.
And it was a pretty rude awakening, but I was fortunately able to put it down and stop drinking, and I'd never gone back. But then you've got this situation you find yourself in where you've been medicating yourself to one extent or another. It's not a great medication, but it is something that alleviates social anxiety and whatnot. So when all of a sudden you find yourself, you go through, it takes, a good 6 months to a year of being dry, at least in my case, before you really kind of settle back into the being that you were intended to be. And you get to that point and you're just like, well, I've cleared away all this alcohol from my system. I'm eating right regularly. I'm trying to sleep. I'm working out. I'm doing everything that I can to try to take care of myself, which is when everybody says you have problems, you're depressed, anxiety, pay attention, whatnot. You need to, get sleep, stop drinking, all these things. Like I've done all that and I'm still having these tremendous issues, in some cases more so. And various psychiatrists and therapeutic approaches. I was doing some SSRIs to try to help and maintain, 5-ends to help with ADD. And these were good to a certain extent, like they kind of had a limited success. But I was able to kind of get through school. It took me several times to get through some of those classes, but like I did eventually do it. And was able to, work and hold down a job and been doing that for a good 6 years now, the same place. And the problem is I was still sort of having these emotional anxiety, social issues. So to kind of come to, what I sort of went through, there's some difficulties there, but approaching my situation through the lens of dealing with Asperger's or dealing with this kind of developmental disorder has helped enormously. Because whereas if you had a problem, I use the analogy like if you've got, if you're limping on your left leg, so you go and you bandage up your knee because it hurts so bad, but the problem is actually down in your ankle. So you don't really fix the whole thing, you fix part of it, but there's a root issue there that needs to be addressed, right? So approaching it through an Asperger's based therapy has kind of helped me in these recent few months. Actually, it's been even less than that, just a recent few weeks. But it ties together a lot of things that I've been kind of struggling with and dealing with. So anyway, that's kind of how I got to where I'm at.
Well, I mean, thank you so much for sharing that with us, Alex. Is very vulnerable. And I know that there's a lot of listeners out there that may be going through the same thing. So learning about this is very crucial, and to talk about this. What, for those people out there that do not know Asperger's, what can you describe the symptoms and what you're feeling and the definition of the term, the diagnosis?
So the limited scope that I have is just based on what I've experienced, and a lot of people have described that there's some things that are in common, a lot of things, like there's a lot of different flavors because there's personalities underneath, there's comorbidities, there's additional symptoms. So what may be reflected in my personality might not be reflected in somebody else.
Right.
And again, the extent that I am qualified to speak is that of my own experiences.
Of yours. Yes.
Right. I will say that there's some things like I'm pretty good with eye contact, was traditionally not something that a lot of folks on the spectrum are good with. And things like that were what told me is like, well, no, this isn't appropriate. This is an appropriate diagnosis. I can do this. I can do that. Some of the things that are sort of universal that I experienced, that I have, gone and sought out and read about from other people, interpreting facial expressions, interpreting intent, theory of mind. And a lot of these things are what I kind of thought was like, well, maybe people just don't understand these things. And that's just sort of generally how it is. But I was objectively able to kind of pinpoint that if some social nonverbal exchange had taken place, And two people that I was with would have been able to receive and process that information, where I was kind of left, out in the cold, kind of
Oh.
wondering, like, okay, well, something, I can tell that something just happened, but I'm not quite entirely sure. So I would start to maybe take an inventory of facial structures, expressions, eyebrows, eye contact, how long, smiling, smirking, dropping, sighing, change of tone of voice, all these things, and kind of see if I could maybe have a little bit of a checklist that I could run through, and then in real time try to go through and isolate whatever I'm seeing, and then equate that to what somebody was intending or what their meaning was, whatnot. And for the most part, like, for example, like at work, I have a very good rapport with most of my working friends, and there's a lot of sarcasm, and there's a lot of I hate to use the term ball busting, but that's just the only term that comes to
Yeah.
mind. That's based on so I go in understanding that. So knowing that when there's an exchange, like, even if it on some level it doesn't quite register, I just mark it off and say, I know that in this environment I'm expecting to see exchanges that have this particular flavor, right? So therefore I kind of make that note. Then I don't have to think that much about it. I just kind of let it sort of transpire. And so that's one symptom that is sort of maybe reflected in a lot of people that I have maybe experienced. I've seen a lot of other people that I've sort of reached out to and read up on, and tried to make comparisons, that have issues with anxiety the way that I do, that have explosions or implosions, and that there's a great deal more. Now, we all have these issues. We all have stress. We all have things that we have to deal with. We all have pain, and it's just that sometimes that there can be a description that actually, when Jesse and I were speaking last week, he mentioned this description as well. I've since heard it on one other occasion. You can use the model of having either a bucket or a cup, and that you've got a certain amount of, let's say, stress that you can put into that cup before it overflows. And when it overflows, you have an issue. And some people have a very empty cup. Some people have a lot of stuff in that cup, and they're able to kind of pour it out. And then some people have a very small cup with a lot of stuff, and it's really hard to get that stuff out. So it can be, something seemingly innocuous can go into that cup, and all of a sudden you can have this emotional reaction where you either explode or implode or cry or whatever it is. Shaking, it's a big one, not being able to keep up with my speech. And I do some other things that I'm, some people that are close to me have watched and have described. I don't really notice it at the time, but so that's the second thing, having that kind of like an emotional combustibility. So that's all fine and good. All you need to do is say, like, okay, well, these are two things that I need to take into consideration. And when I'm monitoring myself, if I know that I have a predisposition to be emotionally combustible, what do I do to make myself as calm as possible, not only for my own well-being, but for my professional environment, and for, most importantly, my girlfriend, my mother, the people around me that love me, and to make sure that I am being, operating as close to 100% capacity that I can be operating in. And so those are some things that kind of come to mind that, I've also seen or know of other people that have described, like a laser focus for some of these mundane tasks, repetitive physical things, which I can kind of do and get lost in. And again, try to objectionably see myself doing it more than some of my friends that may be better described as neurotypical.
Yeah. Hey, can
So
we pause
yeah,
for a
yeah, yeah,
second?
yeah.
Because I feel like that's a big load to carry for you. Just hearing you describe the way you have to analyze your surroundings and like really try
Facial
to read facial, like,
expressions and
and like watch how you react to stuff, like, because you might get set off. Like, I feel like that's a really heavy load for somebody to carry.
I wouldn't know the difference, I guess. I kind of see, again, what's sort of normal to me, and it could just be that that's just sort of the way in the world of things to be given and to have, like, I still consider myself, I've lucked out. I've won the lottery. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I'm very grateful for all the for everything that I have and that I've been endowed with and bestowed with. And if that's something that's just different for me, then, you know, so be it. I'll take it. And it is one of those things that, like, I was told that there's a reason why I might have a delayed response. It's because I'm trying to bring up all this stuff kind of into the forefront of my conscience to answer a
Hmm.
question or to interpret something. And so again, if that's the way that it kind of is, then I'll take it, because I don't really want to, you know, I don't really want to be anybody else. I just, you know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm happy and blessed.
Well,
But
I love that. Like
Yeah.
that. So that makes me feel really good inside because, you know, it's easy as a neurotypical person to look at, and I want to make this clear. This is unfortunately the way most people are. We look at people that are on the spectrum and in varying degrees, and we have pity,
Right. Or feel
or we
sorry.
feel sorry for people because they can't live a quote unquote normal life. And I love the what you were just saying,
Mm-hmm.
that this is who you are.
Yeah.
You don't know it any differently, and you like who you are, and you embrace everything, and that it's something that you can be better because of. And that that spirit, I feel like people miss, and we just look at it, well, they can't be like us. D- Too bad.
But I feel like that is a gift for you, honestly, because you do look at life differently. You do look at things differently. So you give your own perspective. You give your own knowledge of how you understand the situation. And just like you said, music, like, isn't music the universal language? You know, so for
I think
you,
it's a good description. Yeah.
yeah, for
Mhm.
for you, you went to your universal language to learn that first, and then you came out, you know, and learned what you needed to learn as humans. um
Hmm.
and the thing is that's beautiful, because we all need to learn from each other. Diversity is life, right? So we all need to learn from each other, and we need to see your mind just like you need to see our minds, so then we grow as a collective, as, you know, the
Mhm.
sea of humanity, in order to evolve and to make the world a better place. So I
Hmm.
love that you see things differently.
Yeah,
I
like it was blowing my mind listening to you describe how you see things
Yeah.
and how you're analyzing stuff. And because that's just stuff that I don't even think about.
Hmm.
And so to actually think about you doing it made me think about how I don't do it and think about what I actually do consciously. And it puts me more
Hmm.
in touch with my consciousness,
Right.
which is cool because otherwise, like, I'm just doing things regularly. So I love when things remind me to check my own consciousness and
Hmm.
see how I do things and how I do, like, d-
And you
you do
are
it
in
this way.
touch.
And it's so I'm sorry, I'm just, it's really
Yeah.
cool.
No,
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 I
no.
was
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just saying you are in touch with your consciousness. Like, every single moment that someone raises an eyebrow, you're in touch with your consciousness, talking, you know, like, amongst yourselves.
Yeah.
Like, hey, what does
Hmm.
that mean? Okay, that's what that means. The eyebrow raise, or the smirk, or the
Yeah.
frown.
Yeah. You know, and again, you go through, I think that, like, you know, you get familiar with people, and their, you know, habits and things like that, and you kind of are able to it's like a lot of those things, like those profiles are kind of loaded in already, like the same way that's like you're like a cache on the computer. It's like, okay, well, I know this person and this is how they typically behave. So I'm going to expect, you know, 80% of what is going to happen in this exchange I've seen is familiar, etc.
Hmm.
Um, you know, one of the not to segue into the next thing, but one of the things for like for like maintenance, right?
Mhm.
Maintenance and improving and maintaining a good disposition for yourself, that I have had a lot of success with, even before any kind of mention of you know, whether I was neurotypical or atypical. Irrespective of that, what has helped me, and I think will help everybody, is just trying to implement more of a schedule to what extent you can. Now, I was way off, way far up from the median, uh, in terms of my disorganized, you know, being a very disorganized person. I had a lot to do to kind of improve my situation. And I do better if I can sort of plan and have an idea and have some things that are predictable. Now, not everything, of course, is predictable, so you have to be able to be flexible with that. And the way around that is to do things like, okay, well, if I can't predict how the afternoon or the day is going to go, I can predict the next 15 minutes. Or I can say that I will do option A, assuming these circumstances come into pass. And if they do not, I've got option B and I've got option C. And it can be something as mundane and simple as like, I'm going to, go to this particular restaurant for lunch today. And if the restaurant is closed, then I'm going to go to Sprouts and get myself something to eat there. And if that isn't workable, I'm going to do this. And if I can't do it, that's so you have just these options. And that way you still got a sense of like this plan of how things could unfold. And even when you have these variables that create a little bit of chaos, you're kind of able to adapt. So kind of you trick yourself a little bit. But if structure is important to you, as I think it is to, certainly to me, it makes me, I thrive in it to an extent. It's just being able to set up that structure to where you're having it inside and you can follow through with it. And then the rest of the world can turn in chaos around you if need be. But you've still got your compass kind of pointed in the direction that you intended.
Right. That's wonderful in
Yeah.
business and in life.
Yeah, absolutely. And is that one of the reasons why you were so drawn to martial arts, because of the structure?
Yeah, I again was lucky that I was born into the parents that I had who were supportive and who tried very hard. I was started around 8 years old, 9 years old in martial arts, and I thrived in it. And a lot of it was the structured environment. The second thing that was really good was that it's a certainly, as obviously it's a physical discipline. And as a younger person, I didn't quite realize the extent of the coordination issues that I had until kind of going back and looking at some of the evaluations that I went through as a younger person. But I apparently was kind of an uncoordinated little kid, and so and being in martial arts, I think helped tremendously. And I struggled in martial arts. I still do. I still struggle to get stuff underneath, under my belt, no pun intended. It takes me longer to grasp forms and concepts than it does. And I forget things quicker. I have to ask, like, show me that again. Let me say that again. Okay. So what if I have to really, really slow it down and sometimes take up more time? I don't care at this point. I'm just going to go ahead and say, this is what I need to show me again. And let me try to get it. And I need repetition with it. But then I can do it. And I've gotten to the point where in 3 different styles, I've achieved black belts and have some rank across a few styles, and have taught at many of the schools that I've been to over the course, after participating in them for about 4 or 5 years, been a teacher. And so yeah, I think that structure certainly appealed to me. It fit. And that was, again, a lucky situation that I was able to be put into as a child.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome. That's super great.
Now, I know that you've just been diagnosed not too long ago. Are there certain habits that you are forming now after the diagnosis, or is there things that you're still doing from before that you feel like that helps, or has your therapist even told you a lot of things to do in order to help your diagnosis?
She has told me a number of things to do to implement into my routine that I've incorporated, physically, some relaxation techniques, breathing, peripheral exercises in which you kind of stay focused with your eyes forward, but while you're doing that, you're focusing on something back here on this side, and without taking your eyes on. So it's look high, look low, things like that.
I need to do that.
Right?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. A lot of this stuff is just, it's across the board. It works across the board.
Yeah.
And it's just helpful. It's just helpful for humans in general, because we all have anxiety. We all get wrapped up. We all get caught up in things. Yeah.
I'm doing it right now.
Yeah, Melissa's over here testing her peripherals.
I'm testing peripheral vision.
Yeah. You should always look into, because again, we all need these things. We all need to deal and center ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
I had been doing with martial arts, and I had been studying Buddhism and practicing Theravada Buddhism for a while. There's a meditation component with that, and meditation I found is very helpful. And my girlfriend is very much in touch with a lot of things with regards to emotional regulation, emotional settling, meditation, spirituality, and she's also very supportive and very understanding. And she's introduced me to a number of applications that I have found beneficial that she also uses. And she really, I mean, she's a wealth of knowledge with a lot of this stuff, particularly a gentleman by the name of Wim Hof, who does a breathing regimen and also cold water immersion therapy,
Mm-hmm.
which I do just about every morning. I definitely do the breathing, and about 5 times a week go in and take purely cold shower and or cold ice baths.
Oof.
And it does something. Well, start slow, and start like by just turning the water down, and then get used to it. But now it's like it's really worked as a sense of regulation, and I think it calms, like, that's the thing. I can't tell you what exactly it does, but I just know that it works.
Mm-hmm.
And anything that works, I add to my regimen. And again, I'm lucky that she is as much into meditation and personal development, and so we can discuss and bounce back ideas off of each other. And she puts up with me when I go through my extreme lows and highs and whatnot. So being in a situation where you have people in your life that are, if they don't understand, they're willing to try, is very important. And and try and learn. And that, again, that's not that goes for everybody, because everybody's got their quirks, everybody's got their differences, everybody's got their stuff that they're dealing with. Some people are dealing with a lot of things, and you've got to be patient and understanding, and you've got to be the strength for them. And when they're weak and when you're weak, they've got to be the strength for you. So just having somebody, certainly in a relationship capacity, that is willing to do those things is absolutely important. Having friends and family that can do those things is important as well.
Yeah.
So the cold water immersion therapy, breathing, some of the periphery exercises. I do a lot of heavy blankets, weighted heavy blanket on top, and I listen to binaural frequencies, which is where you have a tone generated in one ear and then a tone in this ear, which might be a few hertz higher or lower. And they create something that allows, again, for me, I don't know what exactly it does, but it helps me get to a meditative state very quickly. So I'll come home from work on lunch, I can plug in and take it, like, even if it's just 20 minutes of just getting that, breathing deeply underneath the heavy blanket, like it's a resetting, it's a recalibrating.
Right.
And so those are amongst some of the physical techniques. Cognitive behavioral therapy is important. It is important, again, for everybody to an extent. Thought replacement, recognize when you're doing something, having an obsessive thought, for example, or an anxious thought, and use techniques that counselors give you, like trying to do thought replacement if it's applicable. Sometimes it's great. There's times when it's not, so you have to kind of defer to a different technique. There is certainly a nutritional component, and I found out for me that there is having methylated folate helped me tremendously, taking it twice a day, something specific to a way I express a particular gene. I'm actually heterozygous for me. I have one dominant copy, one recessive copy. So the gene isn't functioning at full capacity. And basically it's just taking vitamins and things that are active, bioactive, that your system can process easier. Sometimes you can take something, you think about if you just swallowed like a penny or whatever, and it just goes through your system, you're not extracting anything from it. But you have nutrients, you have food, you can break it down, your system knows how to extract and pull certain things. So basically, it's something that every individual needs to kind of go to a professional environment, go to a professional medical provider, a doctor, blood tests and gene tests and whatnot, or what you have to do to kind of see what's personally tailored for you. But in that case, it worked for me having methylated folate. I also maintain a really good vitamin regimen, and I eat a lot of antioxidants, a lot of omega-3s, making sure that I get even more than I thought I was needing. I've kind of upped on that. Vitamin D. So yeah, not any processed foods if I can avoid them. Doing a lot more organic, because just you don't. Yeah, it's better. You don't know. I mean, it's like I used to kind of sort of like thumb my nose, and it's like, oh, you're out of control and whatnot. But there's some stuff that, like, if you've got a particular pesticide, how is it acting? Is it still active inside the food? Is it broken down, or is it not? Are you swallowing it? Is it still doing something inside your system? Is it still, it's a chemical compound. Is it still performing the same task that it was designed to do, inside your system? So you've got to be sort of very, fresh fruits, fresh vegetables. I maintain a vegetarian diet that is not related to any kind of mental health. It's more for it's a personal choice. But in that, you also have to make sure that you're getting the nutrients that you need. There's ways of doing that, and again, the best thing that you can do is it's very tailored to the individual. So go consult somebody who is way more qualified than me to tell you, to tell you the best way.
Check your blood.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I mean, there's so many factors to consider, but maintaining that regular healthy diet and as best you can, sleep and wake cycles, and those things, and do everything that you can do to keep yourself as healthy, as calm as you can. Is right, exactly. And then that way, like, that's going to go back to the cup analogy, it's going to increase the size and allow you to kind of have more. So when these chaotic, inflexible things, or when these, I'll just say, let me backtrack. When these variables come up, you're better equipped to kind of deal with them, because you are coming from a position where you're nourished and you're healthy and you're relaxed. As much as you can be.
Yes, definitely. Now, I know that you are doing a lot of techniques and, things that everyone should be doing on the daily. And of course, vitamins and eating nutritious and healthy and organic foods.
I think that just about any approach that is trying to gear towards, cleansing, balancing is going to help. And it should be certainly tried. You should always try something, as long as there's no great risk. There could always be a reward.
Yeah.
So
we've touched on this a little bit already, but this diagnosis, finding it out now, probably would have saved a lot of heartache in the past through relationships of misunderstandings and like not knowing why it is that you act like you did in certain relationships or anything like that. So what kind of effect has this had on your past relationships, and has it gotten better in your current relationship since you've figured it out?
Well, just again, having a girlfriend that is patient and introspective and attentive to a lot of emotional variability is something that is a blessing. In the same way that, like, if you're having parents that support you, it's just, I just kind of lucked out.
Yeah.
And it's in terms of shortcomings and things like that. I feel like the path that I'm on got me to this point, and everything else was at this stage has been something that just kind of added to the learning experience. And there have been situations that maybe not necessarily with relationships, events, particularly when comes to mind. I had tried, I did successfully enlist in the Navy, and I just had some issues when I got to boot camp that had to do with, basically just came down to processing. And it was something that was enough to kind of ring the bells, or ring the alarm, and I was put into separation, medical separation, to be sent home. and processed out before I could do anything. And it was something that I had sort of had my heart set on. And when it came down to it, it's just like there's certain parameters in which I can navigate through successfully and in which I can perform, and there's others that you can't. And you never really see it coming because you don't really know. You're just kind of there, and all of a sudden you're like, well, what happened? In my mind, you think you're paying attention, you think you're on the right track, but it's because the world is turning around you differently than you may be perceiving it. And but again, if I ended up on this path, if I had gone down that route, I don't know where I would have been. Perhaps, my alcoholism would have never been dealt with. I would have maybe been drinking more heavily. Maybe I would have caused some greater damage to myself, to somebody else. So it's like, whatever it is, I ended up here and I'm in a good place now. The worst problem that I have is that I just have some really bad internal panic and anxiety that has to get dealt with. But at the end of the day, I know that that's just the way it is. I'm used to it, and I can continue to kind of add things and steer away from it and just be grateful and thankful for all the good attributes and qualities and aspects that I have for myself and the people that are close to me.
Yeah, that's awesome. So we like, our favorite part of the podcast is to say what your specific recent success story is, big or small. What's the thing that you want to celebrate today that you've found success in?
Let's see here. Recently, what have I found success in? A few months ago, I completed a certification, an IT certification that I had worked. It was a 2-part test. It took me 2 tries to pass the first one, and I passed the second part with the first attempt.
Nice.
And so there was a lot of studying in that, and it was. But I enjoy, what I do. I enjoy systems. I enjoy learning. I enjoy learning about IT, and there's always something new, even some painfully sometimes when you think you figured something out, and all of a sudden the next day it's like, oh, that was version 11.2 or 11.35, and it's completely different from the ground up. You guys, everybody knows because it touches everybody now. But that was my, I was very happy about that. Once you get a certification, once you get a test done, or you graduate something, like, it's just one of those things that nobody can take it away from you.
Right.
And you put in the time, and you've got, even if you just learn it, even if you just learn something and do it, nobody can take it away from you. Like, that is something that and one of the few things that you truly own at that point. You can't lose it. It's done. I mean, you can forget it, but for the most part, like, you can, those types of achievements. So that was something that I was very happy about. And again, I had support, and I was grateful for that. And
well, congratulations.
Congratulations.
Yeah, that's huge.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
And I have one more question, Alex. What advice would you give to those listeners out there that may have some of the symptoms that you have gone through your whole life? What advice would you give to those people?
Okay. Take stock of what you have and be appreciative of that. Find the things that you gravitate to, that you excel at, that you enjoy doing, and don't neglect those things. Develop those things. And it can be something like, it can be a skill. It can be something that, even if it's just a very basic and seemingly mundane task, do it, and do it 100%, because maybe it'll lead to something else. I like to think that kind of thing applies, again, across the board to people in general, because I think that even some of the most successful people find themselves in a rut or whatever. Don't think of yourself as limited. And the best advice I got, again, from my girlfriend was, don't make something your identity. And so if you do that, you're going to be kind of limited to how you're going to respond. And just don't set yourself up for failure. Mostly find the things that you're good at, find the things that you enjoy doing. There's probably a way to apply it to make you give yourself a sense of, if not, income, maybe just a little bit of purpose, and that you do it on your off time while you're doing something, whatever else it is that you have to do. And if it adds quality to your life, find the things that you enjoy and pursue them.
Great advice. Great advice. And to all of our listeners out there, we support you. Mental health is such a huge topic that we all need to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
So I encourage every single one of you, when you have a get together with your friends, your close friends, have a topic that you guys want to discuss before you meet up. And that's the topic you discuss, and you guys can go into depth and talk about it. And those deep conversations will happen, and you will learn other people and the way that they think, just like we learned how Alex thinks today.
Yeah, it's been eye-opening for me, really, because like I said earlier, I just don't process stuff that way. And to think about the way you process things was like unbelievably intriguing to me. Like I really enjoyed thinking about how you look at the world, because it gave me a whole different perspective, and that to me is very valuable.
Well, I'm glad that I could, I appreciate the opportunity to come on, and I'm very grateful that I was invited to, and I'm glad to, to talk about it. And if there's anybody that kind of benefits or gleans any positive information out of it, and it helps in any way, I'm happy to have provided it. So thank you for allowing me that time and allowing me the platform.
Absolutely. Now,
Absolutely.
Alex is a fantastic musician. He has lots of music out in the world that is readily able to be enjoyed. So, Alex, why don't you tell our audience where they can find your music, find you, and connect with you?
My full name is Edward Alexander Winfield, and that is my performance name. YouTube, Spotify. That there's a lot of Edward Alexanders out there. I didn't realize until I started typing the name in the search bar. But Winfield is my last name, and right now, I appreciate your compliment, Jesse. Jesse is also an extremely talented musician as well in your own right, and so it means a lot hearing it from you. It means a lot. It means a great deal. And but yeah, that's my full name. I've got tracks on Amazon, Spotify, and YouTube are the easiest places. It's free. You can check it out. There I am. My modest contribution.
And if anyone has any questions for Alex, definitely hit him up on social media. I'm sure he would love to connect with you.
I've actually taken off.
Just about are you on LinkedIn?
I am on LinkedIn. I have my professional page on LinkedIn. So,
okay, yeah. Great. All right, so
Mm-hmm.
hit him up on LinkedIn if you have any questions for Alex.
Yeah, sorry. Hiding from the world,
or you could send them to us, and we'll gladly pass them along.
Yes, that's right.
Be grateful for
well,
that.
thank you so much, Alex, for being with us today and just opening our eyes and opening our listeners' eyes.
Yes, it's been a treat.
I appreciate you guys very much, and thank you for giving me the platform and having me on. It's an honor.
Absolutely.
Oh yes, thank you so much.
Talk to you soon.
Okay.
Man, what a great perspective.
Oh yeah, I've learned a lot about what other people and how other people see the world.
Yeah, and it's something that you don't really think about, and when it's brought to your attention, you're like, man, I really wish I was thinking about this longer.
And for all the listeners out there that do have, different things going through their mind, they don't understand why they're acting out for certain reasons, or why, they feel unstable. Look into mental health. There is nothing wrong with going to a counselor, going to a therapist, and, getting a diagnosis for yourself if there is anything wrong.
Yeah, talk to somebody, reach out. Don't suffer in silence. If you're going through something, reach out. There's so many people that care and want to help and would be willing to listen. So don't go through things alone and then not have answers of why you have things that are not going right.
Right. And whenever I said things that are going wrong, I don't necessarily mean it like that. I mean, like, you are honestly all amazing humans, and we think differently and we process things differently. So sometimes we have to get the tools in order to process certain things in our own brains. So don't feel bad about going and getting your own tools, no matter what that is.
Yeah, definitely counseling and stuff should be so much more commonplace in our society.
Yeah, we should talk about it way more.
Way more.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that Alex was able to come on today and talk to us about this so openly and honestly and freely. It was wonderful. And like I said, I just really enjoyed the perspective.
Yes, me too. And I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. We are so glad to have all of you guys with us. We are in 15 countries and 4 continents, and we are so happy to be a part of your lives.
Keep spreading the word and reimagining your successes
every single week. And with that, this is a Creative Global Entertainment production. Did you get motivated? Do you feel inspired?
Don't worry about keeping up with the Joneses anymore, and don't forget to celebrate your successes every single day. Thank you for taking this journey with us.
Follow us at Facebook and Instagram at Reimagine Success Pod. Email us at reimaginesuccesspod@gmail.com and let us know what your successes are.
New episodes every Thursday at reimaginesuccesspod.com.
So let's change our mindsets and reimagine success.